everyone, and welcome to a new episode of CEO Talks, where we interview top executives representing different industries to discuss all the new trends reshaping these industries and how are the CEOs coping with the ever-changing business environment. Our guest today is Mr. Okay Barutcu. He is the Regional Manager Director of Grundfos company. Hello, Mr. Okay, and thank you so much for being with us on CNBC Arabia screen.
Hello, May. Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start with an overview of the company and all the products and services the company provides. Can you give us a brief about this company to our viewers?
Sure. Very quickly and briefly, as Grundfos, we are a pump company. And we started off back in 1945, so 75 years old. And today we can safely claim that we are one of the largest, if not the largest, pump manufacturer in the world. But of course our business has also evolved from just pumps into more water solutions, and with that every part of the water cycle that we can see around us, from the ground or the heavens that comes down, to collecting it, to pumping it to our households, to collecting it as wastewater and sewage and everything. So we are taking part in every stage of that water cycle with our pumps and solutions. Now more and more intelligent solutions as well.
Okay, so with coronavirus pandemic taking effect since the beginning of the year and its huge impact on the supply chains, how has your company's operations been affected, especially now that we have seen how sensitive supply chains around the world is, and how susceptible is it for sudden blockages and sudden changes?
It's a great question, and I think nobody has expected COVID to hit us as hard as it did, because we had pandemics in the past, but they were more regional, local. This one was very, very different. To be perfectly honest, at the beginning of the year, we haven't really felt it as much. But when the lockdown started in April and especially May, of course, the whole supply chain has been completely disrupted. Initially, with China suffering from the pandemic at first, we also have factories and suppliers in China, so largely our component suppliers have been affected, and with that, of course, the whole production systems have been globally affected. But our friends in operations and logistics have coped with that relatively well up until April and May, when the lockdowns have started. Because they have managed through our various factories and various sourcing points to ensure that we had the components and the products ready in time. But of course, with the lockdowns, everything has become a problem. From finding trucks to deliver your goods, from getting trucks from one country to another, doing the customs clearance, or the warehouses not being open to take the goods in. So it was
many difficulties due to the lockdown.
Many.
Okay.
But luckily it was not that long, because only in those 2 months we really felt the impact. But outside those 2 months, our colleagues have managed the supply chain relatively well.
So we've talked about the effect on the supply side, but what about the demand side? Did you witness any decrease in demand due to this pandemic and due to this lockdown, global lockdown that we've seen?
I think the honest answer is yes and no both, because we started the year with an extremely strong order book. Because especially the second half of last year, when the business world was booming and need for clean water, sanitation around the world was increasing, awareness was increasing, of course. We started off extremely well, but then, as you said, during the lockdown, when countries were pretty much closed down, some of our customers could not take deliveries. Some of our projects could not progress because simply there could be no one on the site to continue the project. But once again, by and large, because water is an essential product, essential service that everybody needs, and especially during the pandemic, the importance of water, hygiene, cleanliness has actually gone up. and everybody has become more aware of washing the hands and sanitation and all the rest. With that, most authorities deemed us, our industry, as one of the essential industries, and therefore helped us to keep things going and afloat.
So let me get one thing straight. So do you depend more on retail customers or on contract and contractual basis? Do you work on more on contractual basis?
Once again, the answer is all of the above, because we operate pretty much in the full spectrum of pumps. So when you look at our products, you can see we make products as big as my fist or as small as my fist to pumps that is as big as the table, that circular table that we're sitting at the moment. So some of our customers in the domestic sector, so the households, the private villas, those are pretty small pumps. Whereas when we talk about residential commercial buildings, we're talking about bigger pumps for air conditioning, cooling, heating. And then you go into water utility, where we work with the water companies. There we're talking about huge pumps.
So I will get back to you with projects, but let me ask you about all this technological advancement we are seeing, and Corona has emphasized the importance of technology in our lives. So how has that also affected your company's operations and the way you do business?
Well, like most companies, we also had to adjust our ways of operating during the pandemic, and largely because of the lockdowns again, where we couldn't go to the offices, so we had to resort back to working from home like everybody else. And in that respect, I think our systems have coped well, and our colleagues have also coped well. So we managed to stay pretty close to our customers during that period and manage the business as if nothing was extraordinary. And with that, the realization of this whole trend towards digitalization in all industries has become even more obvious, also for us. And so we increased our efforts in terms of digitalizing our company, digitalizing our products, digitalizing our processes. And there was already an ongoing project in many parts of our business, but during this period we have realized the importance of it, especially in the face of crisis situations like this.
So tell us more about your expansion plans. Has Corona affected your expansion plans, and do you have any for the next year, for 2021?
In essence, I can't say Corona has affected our plans very much. Of course, we had to make adjustments to the way we operate, but in terms of our longer-term plans, we had just launched our 2025 strategy at the back of last year, and we're in the midst of reorganizing ourselves for...
Any new markets you are planning to enter?
Of course, there are plenty of places and opportunities out there where we don't have people on the ground. We don't have necessarily enough coverage through partners on the ground. And of course, that's all part and parcel of our 2025 strategy. But the two biggest transformational elements in our 2025 strategy are, one, as we discussed earlier on, digitalization. So we want to make sure that we provide a first-class experience to our customers as well as our people in terms of using the technology, both in doing our daily work, but also in terms of our products, in terms of intelligence in our products. The other transformation is our water transformation, where we want to become more of an integral player in the whole water cycle, not just as a pump supplier, but also providing solutions. So those two will give us plenty of opportunities to expand geographically as well as technologically.
So any particular projects you are currently working on in the GCC area?
Oof.
Okay, name
How
a
much
few.
time do you have?
A lot.
A lot. And I have to say, pretty much in all the GCC countries, we have our own offices and people on the ground. And we are dealing with, once again, throughout the whole spectrum of our product portfolio with the different authorities. Here in Dubai, for instance, we work with the water and the electricity authorities, where we offer not just pumps, but the most energy efficient pumps. So the full-scale sustainability angle is addressed pretty much in every application, from small to big. And then in Oman, we are participating in a number of royal projects, as well as some waterfront projects, so housing complexes. district cooling, which is extremely important in this area.
Talking about all these projects that you're working on, how competitive is this industry?
It's just like any other industry. I think it is quite competitive, but then again, there is different levels of competition. There's different levels.
Does it depend on the innovation and the technological side?
Exactly. And our 2025 strategy very clearly describes how we want to compete. Our plan or our strategy is not to compete on price, because when you get down to that, that's the most common denominator for everybody, and it becomes cheap, cheerful, and really the technological element, the advancement, the energy efficiency, the longevity, the durability of the product, quality, everything disappears. So our claim to fame is differentiation, and that's what we have done over the years, for many years. If you read our mission and our strategy, we claim that we would like to pioneer technologies for world's water and energy problems, and with that improve the lives of people. I think that's a pretty strong and bold statement to make, but when you look throughout the 75-year history of Grundfos, you'll see that we have pioneered a number of very, very important products for this industry. We were the first ones to bring those products to market, and we'll continue doing that.
Okay, let me go back to our first question regarding Corona. So you were mentioning that this pandemic and this crisis is so different than any of the crises that humankind has ever faced. And of course, its business and economic implications are as well so much different. How are companies now preparing for the next crisis, the next pandemic? Do you think that supply chains will be, after Corona, more resilient, more prepared to face these kind of crises?
I think the answer very much depends on how each company responds to the crisis and the needs that have been highlighted throughout this crisis. I think one of the most critical elements that we've seen with this crisis is that you need to be local with your people, with your products, with your production. Once the supply chains and the supply lines are disrupted, it's very difficult to distribute products. So I think in terms of operational angle, the economies of scale, the big scale production facilities, we're going to be seeing less of those, but we're going to see more agile and smaller, more fitter local production units that take over. I mean, the whole 3D printing technology that's coming out is going along those lines already. So on-demand production of product. So that will change. Like I said, also the digital processes in terms of interacting with the customer, as well as delivering the products and services, and how we use the products will also become more and more critical, because during the pandemic, something fails, how do you send people there? How do you fix it? So remote monitoring and condition monitoring of products that are continuously operating, like pumps, will become even more critical. So before something happens, you know the problem is going to happen, and then you take action accordingly.
And you have a backup plan in case you witnessed a disruption, whether in the logistics or in the supply chain.
Of course. And like I said, also the multitude of your supply points and sourcing points and your component suppliers, that's critical. So if you're relying on one source, one factory, one supplier, that's not going to work during a pandemic. So we have to diversify our supply routes and supply channels. And that's going to be on the agenda for everybody, I guess. But working from home will be also on the agenda for many companies, because we realize that we don't need as much real estate anymore, because a lot of the things that we do in the office can also be done at home. So that's going to also be something that we all look at going forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Okay Barutcu. You were here with us, and you are the Regional Manager Director of Grundfos company. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us.
Thank you, May. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. This is the end of our episode of CEO Talks. Goodbye.